Hello everybody and welcome once again to Mountain Computers. Today I'm here with a little bit of a different video. I'm going to be doing a tutorial with Microsoft Hyper-V. That's a virtual machine manager built into Windows 8 and 10 professional editions that basically lets you run a computer on your computer, if you want to put it that way. A virtual machine is a guest operating system running within your host operating system, and that has a couple different advantages. So if you, say, had a program that you liked using, but it was only available on Linux distros, you would be able to run that on Windows computer using a virtual machine, or at least most of the time. You can. There are certain exceptions, such as when you're using Windows. I think some DirectX programs will run. But anyway, today I'm going to be showing you Hyper-V. Hold on, that came up on my other monitor. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, I already have a couple virtual machines set up today. This XP machine is going to be the one that I'm demonstrating how to set up, but I'll be setting it up basically as a new machine here. So I guess starting out with Hyper-V, you can see your virtual machines here. I've never seen checkpoints. I'm not sure that I even know what they are. Yep. You can see a couple details about your virtual machine down here, like which generation it's running, what day it was created. Those are probably the most important ones. You can see the memory requirements down here, and what networking it's configured to use. A particular virtual machine that you have selected up here. Over on the right side, you can see the host machine I'm running on my personal rig right now, which I call Black Ocean. All this action stuff is also up here. I have this virtual machine selected right now, so it's giving me actions associated with it, but if I deselect it, you'll see they come basically the same menu as over here. Anyway, here you can edit and inspect your virtual disks. So basically, every computer needs a hard drive, so in order to accomplish having a, so to speak, separate drive for your virtual machine, Windows sets aside a specific amount of your disk space for the virtual machine to use, and then that's labeled a virtual disk that the host or the guest operating system can access and use. Virtual switches are very important if you want to use networking on your virtual machines, because of course they can't directly connect to the internet as it is. They're a guest machine, they don't have direct access to your hardware unless the virtualization software lets them access it. So virtual switch is a way to add, in essence, an Ethernet switch, a virtual Ethernet switch in your computer that lets both your computer and the guest operating system access your networking at the same time. And I think those are most of the important things to go over to start with. So what I'm going to do right now is, we're not going to cover networking today. I'm going to go to New and Virtual Machine. This is just an informational screen. Go on here, and so this is where you give your virtual machine a name. I'm going to call mine Mountain Computers Test Machine. Sure. And you can choose to store your virtual machine in a different location. I'm not going to today. Normally I would put it on my D drive, but it's fine to use the C drive for today. We're going to choose a Generation 1 because the Windows XP version that I'm using is the 32-bit operating system. And in order to choose a Generation 2 machine, you need to have a 64-bit operating system. The big difference there is going to be that Generation 1 uses a normal BIOS-style boot, whereas Generation 2 goes ahead and virtualizes a UEFI-style boot, like it says here. So slightly faster boots there, but it's not enough of a thing to worry about, I would say, to make a big deal out of it. I am running my Ubuntu machine as a Generation 2. Even though I'm technically running Generation 1 hardware, my computer doesn't have a UEFI on its own. So that's, I don't know how it accomplishes that exactly, but here you can see I'm allowed to choose my OnePlus 3's USB tether, but I'm just not going to try that out today. I've had some problems with it working on my home internet for some reason. And here's where you can create your virtual hard disk. I didn't talk about the memory at all. So basically, you choose an amount of memory that you want to start up the machine with. Like right here it says 1 gigabyte, which will be more than enough for Windows XP to run normally. And then you're allowed to also pick the ability to use dynamic memory, and what that does is it, like it says, dynamically readjusts the amount of memory that you're using. Excuse me. On your machine as is needed. So it's allowed to use as much memory as it technically can get access to, and if it runs out, of course, it'll start trying to page file to your virtual disk. And you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and switch that over so that we actually have room for it. There's no way that I have that much room on my SSD right now. And we'll give it 40 gigabytes. That's more than enough for what we're doing today. And then I'll just go ahead and continue on. Now this is an important step here. This is where you pick which operating system you're going to load from, basically your boot disk. So the way that I'm doing it today is you can install from a .iso file, and you can find most Windows ISOs online for free, and of course in order to actually use them you need to activate them, which does require an activation key. But the ISOs are available for free online. So if I go ahead and click Install Operating System from the bootable disk, an ISO file is basically an image of a disk. And I just want to say, I also have installed from physical media before, and that does work fine. But yeah, like today, we're going to go ahead and use this Windows XP Service Pack 3 Professional Edition ISO that I have on my desktop here. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Next and Finish, and it goes ahead and it creates the machine for us. And then I can open it up by double-clicking in the Virtual Machines box here. And it opened up on my other monitor again. There we go. Okay, at this point you can close out of that. And if I go ahead and go into my settings here, you can see we can add more hardware here. This is your BIOS boot order, basically. Starting off, you'll boot from your CD, and then later you'll boot from your... it uses an IDE driver for disks in Generation 1 hardware. So those will automatically flip themselves around later on. Secure boot is only enabled on Generation 2 machines, so we won't be using it here. Here you can see our memory allocation of 1 gigabyte that we set up before, and the dynamic memory range can be seen here. Here you can pick the number of processor cores, or threads really, that your machine is allowed to access. Since I have an i7 with 8 cores, or 4 cores and 8 threads, I'll go ahead and bump it up to 2. It probably doesn't need it that bad being Windows XP and only running for a few minutes, but like I said, either way it doesn't really matter, so bumping it up won't hurt it. In normal use, you'll want to give it as many cores as you can spare, so if you're doing something else on your host machine at the same time, you'll want to try and balance out that use case as much as you can. And that is you'll want to balance out the usage of each machine. This is where you can see your virtual disk information. This is where you can see the ISO that you're installing from. This is a SCSI controller for physical drives that you can connect with. Here's your network adapter. You can also add more network adapters if you want to connect your machine to multiple networks, as well as the legacy network adapter, which is the way that most legacy machines like Windows XP have to connect. Normally they wouldn't be able to connect through the standard network adapter driver. These COM ports you can set up to give them access to remote computers, basically. And then a diskette drive if you have a floppy disk that you want to set up connectivity with. And then here you can rename the virtual machine, as well as having a couple other configuration details. But for now, let's go ahead and get on to booting up the machine. So all you have to do to boot the machine is hit the start button here. And then from there, it should go ahead and start connecting. And here we are in Windows Startup. If anybody has ever installed Windows XP, it should look pretty familiar. So here we are in the Windows XP boot screen. So all I'm going to do right now is hit enter to continue for installation, and then I'll just go ahead and press F8 to agree with the license agreement. So by default, the disk that you created, the virtual disk, is unpartitioned, so click C to create a partition if you didn't mount it to your Windows machine already, and then from there I'm just going to pick the default size and press enter to accept that size, and then from there I'm going to click enter to install onto that new partition that we created, and then I'm going to use the quick format because there's disk space that's going to give me any problems, I don't think. So I might skip past this while this is formatting, guys, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, guys, it went through and it did all the file copying for me, and right now it's ready to reboot the computer, so it's going to do that in just a second. There we go. And now it's gone ahead and it's already switched up the boot order to go back to the Windows XP load up instead of the ISO file that we were booting from before. And from here it's basically just like a normal Windows setup. I'll run you through it until we get to the desktop, but it's basically just a normal Windows setup. So it's going to go through and it's going to do the installation of Windows files now. It did the copying before, but I'll go ahead and skip past this for you guys again, and I'll see you in just a second. Okay, guys, we're back here, and we're most of the way through installation. Basically, right now, it's asking me what language I want to use to set up and what keyboard layout I'm going to use. Of course, I'm using US English and United States English for those options. For a name, I'm just going to go ahead and put in Mountain Computers, which is technically the organization too, but I'll just skip putting in an organization. And then here's where you put in your product key. I'm going to put mine in and then I'll get back. Okay, I got my product key put in, and we are on the next page from that now. So I'll just go ahead and leave the computer name default and not put in a password, but of course if you want to put in a password on your virtual machine, you can. And then, let's see, we are not in Pacific time where I am, we are in Mountain time, if I can find that. Aha! There it is. And that time is correct. That all looks good. And now it's going to go ahead and try to install a network, but it's not going to be able to find one. And then I believe that it also has problems installing the COM drivers that we saw before. And I don't know why that is, but it's not like they're connected to anything anyway, so it's not a problem. I'll get back to you guys when the error comes. Okay guys, we just finished the installation process here, and I think it's getting ready to spit us out into Windows after a reboot. So, some of you may be wondering, well, about how long did that take, Matt? I'm looking over at my timer right now, and it is at 34 minutes and 15 seconds, so it doesn't take too long. You can walk away for quite a bit of the process. As far as like, well, the actual installation goes. I never saw that COM error come up. I don't know what was up with that when I installed it on my own for my actual virtual machine, but it didn't come up this time. So Windows XP is saying that it is going to automatically adjust for some kind of better screen resolution. I'm going to optimize that even more, obviously, than that, because it only brings it up that big. But we'll go ahead and let this boot up here. So I guess right now I could go ahead and go over a couple important shortcuts that are involved with using Hyper-V. So while you're using Hyper-V, the default behavior of the relationship between your host and guest cursors is that while you're using the guest machine, your cursor is bound to the box that the guest operating system takes up, the window, I guess. So, in order to release that, you press Control Alt and then your left arrow key, and that will release your cursor. Your on-screen cursor then turns into a tiny little dot that's probably hard to see, but if I drag my cursor off of the window there, you can see it over here. So that's the first important hotkey. And then the other one is to bring up the virtual machine as a full screen. So in order to do that, you would press Control Alt and then the pause break key, which should be way up in the upper right hand corner if you're using a standard layout keyboard. And that'll bring up the machine as full screen like you can see here. To get back out of that, you just press the same key combination. Or, alternatively, you can Control Alt left arrow key while you're in here, and then press the restore down key, up there, or button rather, and that'll bring you in here. So, Windows XP, of course, always starts up with the Start menu open to try and encourage you to use all their fantastic things. I'm going to move the recycling bin up here. Just always bugs me that it's in the lower right in these generations. I don't know why. I grew up starting out with, well, I guess I started out with Windows 95, then went to XP, but most of my computing took place on Windows 7, and now with Windows 10, it just doesn't do that with the lower right there. So if I go to Properties and then Appearance, or not appearance. Man, where do I go? Settings. I can bump the resolution. I'm gonna sacrifice some color depth doing this, but if I go ahead and bump up the resolution there, you guys can see that it actually does resize the whole window. Just like that, which is great if you're using a modern monitor. And then you can see if you go too big, like I just did, then you might wind up having to scroll on the edges to see all of your screen. So we don't necessarily need it that big at all. I'm going to try bringing it down one more step here. There we go. Okay. So I think that's all that I wanted to go over today, guys. Yeah, like or dislike depending on how you felt about the video. Leave a comment if you have any more complicated thoughts than that. Check out our website, which is linked in the video description. Subscribe if you really like the channel. It'll really help. It'll really help us out, guys. And yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Have a good one.